Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome once again. It's day number 3, Virtual Camp Meeting. Woodlands Conference presents Virtual Camp Meeting 2021. I begin with this very special announcement. Did you know that at the end of our Virtual Camp Meeting, we'll be actually running baptisms across the 19 centers of our conference? And so if you'd like to be part of that, you'd like to be baptized, remember to simply dial that number which is reflecting on the screen and indicate your intention to be baptized. Someone will pick up that call and they'll get back to you. I have the pleasure of indicating that we have another special program today. And we will have a children's corner, we'll have health nuggets, we'll have special music. And above all, you will indeed enjoy a series of lessons. Please sit back, enjoy those lessons. They are meant just for you. And of course, we will not just conclude today. We'll have a special moment for the preaching of God's Word. This is biblical preaching. I'm introducing to you Dr. Tommy S. Namitondo. He'll be presenting the Word of God, and I pray that you will be edified, that you will be rejuvenated, you'll be revived, and you'll be drawn closer to God. And so to all of you viewers following via Facebook, indeed on television, it is my prayer that God will bless you and bless you abundantly. Sit back, relax, enjoy the thrill.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God who is in heaven, the all-knowing Father, the provider of all things, we thank you in advance for the message of the day. And we thank you, Heavenly Father, for the preacher. And we thank you for the audience. But today, Heavenly Father, we know that we have been listening to your servant from the time we began this camp meeting. But we pray that today you may use him in a very special way. May his voice be a tool you are going to use to touch our hearts and pierce us to the point where marrow and the bone itself is meeting, and bring us and revive us to the point where we will not regret that we spent our time to listen to this message. So we ask you, Heavenly Father, this moment that you take over and do your will in us and through your servant. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Hello everyone, we're children from China Seventh-day Adventist Church. My name is Evelyn.
My name is Daniel.
My name is Iwotu.
My name is Chibukisho.
My name is Ndanji.
My name is Chipeko.
We are here to present you the special feature entitled, Now is the Time to Love. In starting, we're going to sing for you a song. You're my brother, you're my sister, so take me by the hand. Together we will work until he comes. There's no foe that can defeat us when we're walking side by side. As long as there is love, we will stand. Jesus bids us shine in this world of darkness and lonely hearts. There are weary souls who perish while the days are going by. There is simply no idle scoring. So now is the time to be more united than divided.
If we can renew someone's smile in our life journey, that would be great. If our faces can be as bright as the morning everywhere we go, that would be even greater. Now is the time.
Jesus bids us shine first all for him. Did you know that he also knows when our light is dim? We should take note of all the lonely hearts to cherish while the days are going by. Now is the time.
This world we live in is full of signs. It is full of sadness and weeping eyes. Now is the time to help a fallen brother rise. I can just imagine the good we all may have done while the days are going by. Indeed, just like my friends have said, now is the time for the Lord to come.
Now is the time.
We can love one another because He loves us first. He loves us at our worst, and He loves us at our best. And we can love each other, oh, because He loved us first. Oh yeah, we can love each other, oh, because He loved us first. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. So compare this freedom. Yeah, 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 yeah. A love so unrehearsed. You can love me at my worst. You can love me at my best. And we can love each other, oh, because He loves us first. Oh yeah, we can love each other, oh, because He loves us first. We can love one another because He loves us first. He loves us at our worst, and He loves us at our best. And we can love each other, oh, because He loves us first. Oh yeah, we can love each other, oh, because He loves us first. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. So compare this freedom. Yeah, 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 yeah. A love so unrehearsed. You can love me at my worst. You can love me at my best. And we can love each other, oh, because He loves us first. Oh yeah, we can love each other, oh, because He loved us first.
I hope you have all enjoyed yourselves.
See you next time.
I greet you all in the name of the Lord. We continue talking about our health using the acronym that was come up with by the General Conference of our church in the health department. The acronym is Celebrations, which tells us the elements that we need to put in place in order for us to have a healthful life. And today we're looking at the letter L, which stands for liquids. Now, not all liquids are equal. I know some people say, oh, I had a drink, I had coffee, I had tea. When we talk of liquid, water is the liquid that we are talking about, because next to air, water is the most important element that we need to be able to survive. And in fact, our body is composed of a lot of water. 70% of our body is water. Different parts of the organs and different body parts may have different amounts of water in terms of proportion. For example, the brain is 85% water, while other parts of the body that, like the bone marrow, which is a hard part of the body, does not have as much water, and it has got about 20 to 25% of it being water. But regardless of the proportion of water in any given part of the body, the fact of the matter is that almost every cell and tissue of our body requires water for it to be able to perform its functions adequately. So water is indeed the liquid of life. Water is what the body uses to transport elements within the body. Water is the lubricant for movement. If our joints do not have enough lubrication, we're going to have painful joints. Water is important for digestion. Without having water, the digestive process will not occur as it ought to. Water is the prime transporter of the waste material. We know that the kidneys are the part of the body that is used to eliminate waste, one of the parts of the body, and water is needed for the kidneys to perform their function. Water is also a temperature regulator. It has been found that if people are exercising, like maybe engaging in hard physical exercise, and they are not taking any water, over a period of time, they'll not only get dehydrated, but even their temperature will be seen to rise. So adequate amount of water also helps to regulate the temperature. And we know that water is the major component of the blood that circulates in our bodies. How do we get the water in? mainly from the liquids that we take in. This can be the pure water itself, which is the best, and any other thing that is in liquid form. It is better to take water than tea in terms of when we're counting how much water we're taking in, because certain food elements, even if they are liquid, apart from being liquid, unfortunately, they also have a diuretic effect, meaning when you take coffee, you will take in some water with the coffee quite okay, but sooner rather than later, that coffee will make you feel like urinating, meaning you take in water, but it increases the amount of urine production you're having, so it means you are reducing even the amount of water overall that will balance out in your body. So 2/3 of the ingested water is from liquids that we take, and 1/3 is from the food that we take, and then there's a small amount of liquid that is made during food metabolism. So what if our intake of water is inadequate? What will happen? Is it something of consequence, or can we go about in our normal way? Well, what we will notice when we haven't had enough water is that we are not going to sweat as much, and our urine production will be reduced. We'll get dehydrated, and we may have the rise in the body temperature. Then we'll have an inefficient clearance of body waste. We may have the blood thickening and the blood flow being impaired. And we may have increased risk of vascular clotting, which may manifest either as a stroke or a heart attack. And we also know that if we do not take enough water, we'll get constipated. Quite okay, we know that for constipation, you need your roughage and you need to take enough roughage, but apart from that, no matter how much roughage you're taking, if you're not having enough water in your diet, you're still going to get constipated. So we need to have enough water to avoid constipation. And then when we are dehydrated, we may end up with a headache. I'm sure a number of us have had the experience where you walk maybe a long way on a hot day, and by the end of the day, you find that you have gotten a headache, but when you drink the water, you feel much better. So dehydration may bring about dizziness or a headache. But just a disclaimer, don't treat every headache you get with water. Of course, you drink your water, but if it continues, please do go and see a medical practitioner in case there's something beyond just the dehydration. And then if we do not take enough water, we increase our risk of developing kidney and gallbladder stones. So we really need to take adequate water so that our urinary tract has got enough water to clear out all the minerals that might tend to form into the stones. But how do you know that you are getting enough water? Because of course, even according to our age, according to our weight, the amount of water that we may need to maintain a good body function may vary. For example, a 1-year-old child will certainly not need as much water as an adult will need because they are younger. But for anyone, regardless of our age, regardless of our weight, regardless of any other things that may make us different from other people, we're going to know if we are taking enough water by the color of our urine. If our urine is dark and it is yellow, we know that we are not taking enough water. When we take enough water, the urine becomes pale. Then we'll be able to know that, okay, I've taken enough. We need the urine to be as clear as it can be. Although I need to mention that certain medications and certain vitamins may alter the color of your urine. Those that have taken TB medication before will know that the TB drugs will alter the color of your urine. And those that have taken vitamins, especially vitamin B before, will know that equally the vitamin B will change the color of your urine and make it to look more yellow. So the yellow color, of course, we're referring to someone who is not taking any medication that could alter the color of their urine. And it's just a guide in terms of knowing how much we should be taking. When should we drink the water? We are advised to begin first thing when we wake up, because we know that while we were asleep, we were still breathing, our body was still waking, meaning there's an amount of water that the body has expended even while we were sleeping. So we want to begin the day by taking some water, and we continue throughout the day in between our meals to take the water. We are not encouraged to take water with the meal, but in between the meals, about 30 minutes before we eat the food, not together with the food, because that will make our digestion to take longer than it ought to. So in summary, water is the liquid of life. In order for us to be healthy, we need to take it in adequate amounts. Thank you very much.
Yesu uvena kukuita Vuela, vuela, obe, vuela Muchema wabashove Wayanda bingi Vuela 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 Muchema wabashove Wayanda bingi Vuela 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 Muchema wabashove Wayanda bingi Vuela vuela vuela
I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem. We shall never hold the peace, day nor night. Go through the gates, prepare ye the way, prepare ye the way, all the people. Cast up the highway, cast up the highway, cast up the highway, and gather round the storm. Lift up the standard, lift up the standard, lift up the standard among the people. Hallelujah, 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 amen. Hallelujah, 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 amen. Amen, amen, amen. Hallelujah, 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 amen. Hallelujah, 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 amen. Amen, amen, amen.
Welcome to this discourse on investment and entrepreneurship planning. So my expectation of this discussion with you is that you need to acquire, if you don't have that knowledge, to acquire some knowledge or broaden it where you already have it on investment and entrepreneurship. I would also expect that we need to take informed decisions. You know, life is about making decisions, and those decisions are best undertaken if very well informed. Otherwise, we're making decisions to pluck pies in the sky, you know, where you have no shelter to get there. There's also a need to plan to undertake investments, or this is where the rubber meets the tar. Transition from what I would call financial slavery to financial freedom. I will explain a bit more on this as we delve into the discussion. Now, I want to start by making some serious anchor point comments. And I'm quoting, if you allow me, a number of verses so that we're in sync with the thought process that goes into this thinking. And I'll start with Genesis chapter 1. And I'm quoting chapters and verses that are very well known to you. Genesis 1, verse 26, in there God says, "Let us make man in our image. What follows there is that, and then that may have dominion, okay, over the rest of the earth and everything that is in there. So we're looking at man being made in the image of God. And what follows with the punch is that they have dominion. So man must have dominion over everything else that exists under the sun. And Exodus 20, verses 8 to 11, typical biblical understanding that you and I ought to have. That, there's the aspect of having to honor the Sabbath day, rest on it. My interest is you can't rest without having worked. For in 6 days we must labor. And on the 7th, we rest. What I see in there is the aspect of enterprise, 6 days of laboring. Then comes the rest. Psalms 37, verse 5. God's children are well fended for, but you must come along in this understanding. That fending is not that you are seated back relaxing and manna is falling. Manna fell back in the wilderness. In our time, you and I have to toil in order to have manna. Interesting chapter that I also see is Luke chapter 19, reading verses 12 to 26. But I'm interested in verse 13. The Bible says, and the master says, occupy till I come. You don't occupy by, crossing your legs one over the other. You occupy by being a busy bee. Occupy till I come. And the wisest of men that ever lived speaks in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 11. Time and chance is given to them all. Nobody will dare say, I was denied an opportunity. We all have had chances given to us. How we utilize that chance remains to be seen at the end of the day. And Revelation 3, verse 18, I just setting the table, the tone here. Revelation 3, verse 18, there's counsel that we buy of God. Now, purchase is a transaction. And if you come to understand the transaction, there's not just giving, there's an exchange of things. Transaction, to buy. And finally, I rest on Matthew 6, verses 19 to 21. Therein, there's your investment destination. Why is it that that you must invest? That we need to invest where? In heaven, where thieves won't break in. There's no moth that will rust your investment. So what is the rationale for investment? I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about investment. Then I can cross over into talking about entrepreneurship. What is the rationale for investing or investment planning? Now, there are three things that we need to understand when we talk about investment. Investment has to do with liquidity. You need cash for you to be able to do anything. I mean, back in my secondary school days, I read some of those very interesting books by a guy called James Hadley, Chess. And one of the books I remember too well, James says, you are dead without money. Dead without money. I mean, money is a means of exchange. So we need to plan, in our investment planning, that, we need to have liquidity. We need to grow our investment, grow your either personal or family estate. You don't have one investment asset and it remains there forever. It must grow. And why are you growing that? Because you want to try and avoid the risk of concentration investment in one asset. Suppose that investment crashes, you are done. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket. So we'll be talking about having diversified investments. And here is the third point on investing. The third point for investing, I'll leave you to guess. I've talked about liquidity. I've talked about growth. But perhaps let me not push you too much to guess. Matthew 25, we have a story of the master that gave talents, to the workers. 3 talents were given, 5, 2, and 1. You know the story too well. The guy that had 1 talent went and buried it. He froze the investment. He froze the value of money. If you dig into the earth and bury money there, let me not worry about the composition of the money itself. I want to talk about the value. You see, you have frozen the value of that asset. If it takes 5 years and the money is in the earth, we say in investment principle that 1 kwacha today is worth so much more than 1 kwacha in 5 years' time. It will have been beaten by inflation or whatever else. So you cannot bury money. You're freezing its value. The point I'm making there is capital preservation, preserving value. So when you invest, you're making sure that the asset is moving in time with everything else that affects the financial markets, everything else that affects inflation. You're keeping that value growing. So grow the asset, keep liquidity, and maintain value, capital preservation. But in the cycle, we have life cycle. A child is born, the parents do everything they have to do, and the kids put into school. From school, what do you expect? Employment or entrepreneurship. Then the guy goes to get married and is now starting his own family. So you have marriage, you have children, and then you have what I call comforts. You have to enjoy life to the fullest. If the guy is working, will come a time when he has to retire, so he hits retirement. And ultimately, there is death. That is a given. You cannot negotiate that. So how you die is a matter of, is a choice? Well, as to your destination. But in the interim, how you die will define how you have lived, your life habits, as we said. So in principles for investments, we'll consider risk mitigation of loss of income due to retirement. There is risk of mitigation for loss of the breadwinner. Death is certain. Grow the family or individual estate, as I've already indicated. There's capital preservation, I've already spoken about it. There's maximization of investment return. So that speaks to your risk appetite. There's the security of the asset, diversification or spreading your risk, and then liquidity, as I have stated. Now, in investment, you worry about the age of the people that are investing. You have mainly 3 grades. You have the young, the middle aged, and the retired. The young will have a much higher risk tolerance because they're young. So they invest, because the more risk you take, as the principle goes, the more the return. Okay, so the younger you are, the more you'll be inclined to taking much higher risk tolerance. And then the objective is also to grow it. Because you are young, you take a higher risk, it's growing. And I'll speak about the stock market in short time from now. So you have high risk appetite because you have age advantage. The middle-aged tend to have medium to high risk tolerance. The objective for investment is income and growth. So they also are in the consolidation mode. I'll talk about consolidation as well. Then they retired. Their risk appetite is more on the medium side. They're retired. Okay, so they will not take very high sort of risk investments because they need to have liquidity. I mean, now and then there's this sickness, there's this illness, so they must have cash ready handy so that they can have medical treatment or whatever else. So their income and capital preservation is what their focus is. Because why? You know what? They're in the consumption mode. They have retired. So, they don't have the energy anymore to run and work and earn. What about assets would we have in our environment? Limited as it is. Okay? Your investment will mainly consist of cash and cash equivalents. And in that space, you're looking at bank deposits, term deposits, perhaps commercial papers, that are easily converted into cash. They are liquid assets. Then you have fixed income securities. And in this space, we're talking about government bonds, we're talking about corporate bonds, fixed income. Your features there will be liquidity. Your feature there will be low return because, the government is said to be less risky. I mean, when investing in government bonds and treasury bills, at the end of the day, the government is borrowing. So I'm yet to find a government that has borrowed and has been shut down. So the risk there is a little low. I don't want to spend much time on collective investment schemes. We don't have that many around. Real estate is a fact, okay? Where is it that you have invested your money? A house. Real estate, either house or office space or warehousing, you're sure that that tends to grow with value in time. Derivatives and alternative investment assets, I will not spend much time on that because we don't have many of those around. What is our market structure? Maybe let me not bore you too much on this. Performance measurement, you may want to worry about that. You may want to worry about the safety of funds and risk, as I've indicated, and return considerations. Your yield will normally be over a return from capital and income. That you must worry about, because then that gives you a capital gain on your investment. If you're talking about stocks, for example, you have dividends, you have capital gain, you have interest on deposits, you have rentals on rented property. Your term investment period will be, investment period / asset liability. That is your choice, how much you wish to go in depending on your age, as I've indicated. And then your exchange risk. Wow, we are in a time when we're seeing most interesting periods in our time. When the kwacha, went that way, losing so much value by the day, but because of one statement, made by the president-elect, we've seen the way the market can shift. That affects investments. Marketability, it has to do with liquidity, realization of investment, and then also you need to worry about your exit mechanism. And then ultimately, the impact of tax and on overall return. I will quickly talk about asset allocation. You have your cash, you have your money market, you have your property, you have your equities in summary. Now, your equities, I happen to have looked at the stock market. We have less than 25 entities listed on stock market. Now, the Lusaka Stock Exchange started in 1994. I remember then that I did some work with them. To this point, there isn't that much growth in terms of assets on the market. There's a limitation in terms of performance of the Lusaka Stock Exchange. That goes to affect the economy. The more companies that you have in the economy, the more the need for them to go to the stock market. That's what you get you raise your capital. But why is it that we don't have that many stocks on the market? And as a matter of fact, even for the stocks that are on the market, there isn't that much headroom. I mean, stocks are held by those that have bought. They're not really trading. If there's a trade, they're not as many as you'd expect to find on the stock market. So there's also a limitation in that space. So what assets do you have? You have your cash, the bank deposit, I've said. You have real estate. You have the equities, quite limited. But you still need to invest anyway. When it comes to this, I do not take a chance because there's a rain there, as we always say. There's death, as we always said. But you have a family to worry about. So when you die and you're leaving a family behind, what is it that you're leaving your family with? Well, it's fair to say that the Lord said, be fruitful and multiply to Adam and Eve. It was not a blanket statement. Just be fruitful and multiply, fill and replenish the earth. You have to be resourceful even when you've gone into the grave. You have to leave your family in a way that they're not left destitute. It would be unfortunate that while you lived, you enjoyed your life, but the people that you leave behind remain to suffer. Think again. Think again regarding your investments. So, one of the few golden rules that I look at is start early with your investments. You invest even through children. Remember, spread your risk and keep monitoring your investment. Timing the market and not timing the market. I'll have some practical examples of the performance of IPOs on the Lusaka Stock Exchange, but I think that that's going to take us a bit of time. I wish that I was beaming these slides so that you could easily follow. So, with that, I want to look at the cash flow quadrant. For those of you that love reading, Robert Kiyosaki is one guy that most people have come to hear about because of his famous book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, Kiyosaki has written so many books. Right now, I'm reading his book under the title, Why the A Students Work for C Students. Now, given a school environment, you always have students that are, top end, the A students. And then you have the not so well, thinkers. Put them in a bracket of C. But what reality has demonstrated is that the most brilliant students, are actually working for the not so brilliant students, the C students. Why is it? Interesting book. But I think this must have been in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He did a cash flow quadrant. The cash flow quadrant has 4 quadrants. You have the first quadrant being an employee. I made a statement that you should take a philosophy, a change in philosophy, to move from being a financial slave. Let me define that. There's no school in this world where they'll teach you how to make money. What they teach you is to be a good accountant. They'll teach you to be a good medical doctor, a good lawyer. That's what they and when you graduate, what are you expecting to do? Look for a job. Go to a law firm. Or any other company for an accountant. Maybe a teacher. That's what we go to school to learn. But what we don't realize as we're learning is that we're learning to become an educated slave financially. Yeah, because when you're working for a company or somebody, what is your worry? Job security. You know, you will toe the line of the employer. Whatever the employer says, you will jump and perhaps even ask, how high must I jump? What we must think about as we go to school, for those that are going to school, is that, firstly, well, we need school, okay? We're not saying don't go to school. The school helps you to think, I think, in a better way than somebody who hasn't been to school. So go to school, but don't think of just being a financial slave. What should you be? You should become financially free. I would say that don't be school smart. By school smart, when you train as a medical doctor, you're thinking in a straitjacket as a medical doctor. You're thinking medicine. You're not thinking anything else. When you're an accountant, you're thinking books of accounts. You know, you're thinking international financial standards. Or you're an auditor. That's what you're thinking about. You're not even an accountant, you're thinking medicine. I mean, it doesn't work. You can't be a lawyer and you're thinking medicine. So by being school smart, we are in a straitjacket. School smart. I mean, you're educated, but you see, you know too much in very little. You know too much about medicine. That's what you know. In one field out of, a universe of fields. So you know very little in the universe in which we exist. But if you become a street smart, now street smart, you don't need the whole lot of encyclopedia in a specific profession. What you need is working knowledge. Because you will not sit in one corner and practice that little knowledge that you have. What you'll be doing is to hire people that have so much knowledge in a specific field, so they work for you. Entrepreneurship. So the quadrant has the employee, I've defined, and then the next quadrant is the self-employed. Now, self-employed, a person who is self-employed cannot say he's a business person. Because in order to qualify, to define your sector, if you're self-employed, you need to have a number of cash flow streams. All right? You'll be looking at the minimum 4, if not 5, streams of income. If you just have one line of cash flow, you'll be a self-employed. Yeah, let me give you an example. Our brother lawyer X, he runs a company called X and Company. You know what? There's no company. There's just X. Because if he's unwell on a specific day, you know what? Clients will go, and the personal assistant will tell the clients, sorry, Mr. X is unwell. He's not in the office. It's as good as just closing the shop, because she can't just be there to tell people you're not there. There's no income flow. Then the third quadrant is the business people. I've, in my attempt to try and define certain ones here, I've touched on the business. A number of cash flow streams. Whatever business you're doing, or businesses, you need to have a variety of cash flow flowing into your company. Then there's the investor that I've just described. The investor does not need to specialize. He's a street smart. And there are a number of them that we can talk about. So let me spend a few minutes talking about life metamorphosis. So we're transition from being an employee to an entrepreneur. You need to change philosophy. Forget about your job security. and the paycheck at the end of the month. There's no paycheck sometimes for an entrepreneur. You need to consider, ability to operate sometimes without money as an entrepreneur. You're taking serious decisions in life. So you're operating without financial security sometimes. You need to have the ability to focus on opportunity rather than on resources. You need to have management styles to manage different people with different backgrounds. I can testify to this. I've been managing a different bunch of people, and hey, sometimes it's a nightmare. You need to have, management ability to also manage and control resources. You're now becoming an entrepreneur. There's got to be value for every ngwe or every dollar that you spend. You are not just because, at the end of the month, there's more money coming. No, sir. You need to account for every ngwe that you're spending as an entrepreneur. You should have team and value-oriented style rather than just paying or promotion-oriented. You should be an active learner. An entrepreneur is always learning. Not necessarily in class, but in the market. There's diversity of knowledge that changes and increases on a daily basis. And there's no graduation in that space. Okay, I've already alluded to the fact that you need to have generalized education and not necessarily, falling in a straitjacket and specializing in a particular field. So you have to have courage to be responsible for business. And how do you seize an opportunity? There are many ways to look at or to look for opportunities. You read a lot, that opens you to opportunities out there. You need a network. You need to be asking questions, for example, such as what limitations exist in current products and services? What do you like that is not available in the market? Are there other uses for new technology, for example? Is society changing? What groups have unfulfilled needs? What about people's perceptions? Okay? Growing demand for food, for healthy foods, for clothing, etc. Business ideas usually fit into one of four categories that were described by a guy called H. Igo Ansoff in Harvard Business Review. This is what Igo says. There are four products. All right? Quickly name them. There's an existing product for an existing market. And there's a new product for a new market. And there's a new product for an existing market. All right? In there, you may want to expand and perhaps include modified goods and services. And then the fourth one, there's an existing product for a new market. So as an entrepreneur, you are brainstorming because, you are now looking to enter a space in which you have no experience. So an idea is great, but you need to give it legs. So your job as a new entrepreneur is to think deeply about every aspect of your business. Consider answers to potential questions such as, what business should I undertake? Around here, if somebody opens a boutique and perhaps runs to Turkey to pick suits, you'll be sure that there'll be a whole lot of people that will start going to Turkey to buy suits and come and sell, open boutiques everywhere. or others will begin to move from door to door. You start a specific type of business, you'll be sure that you'll not be the only one. There'll be 1,000 other people, that will join the bandwagon, even if they haven't done thorough thinking. Sooner or later, the capital is sunk because they didn't think through properly the sort of business that they like to engage in. Who is the target market when you're thinking about a business? As to what sort of business you like to get involved into? Who is your target market? And what could possibly go wrong? All right? And if it does happen, how do you mitigate, what has gone wrong? So you need to plan ahead and put the necessary control measures or risk analysis, regime in place so that you then have ready answers to mitigate those risks if they crystallized. You might be thinking, are there traditional products or additional products or services that could tie into your main offering? What are the main things that you want your customers to know about you? I'll be thinking product differentiation. That's what makes a difference. You can have 20, 30 people selling the same product. You go to the market, you find the whole bunch of ladies selling the tomatoes or onions or fish, whatever else. So you go from one store to another, you're trying to find quality. Are not tomatoes that are stale or, they've had an effect of termites or ants or whatever you like to call the pesticides that attack the tomatoes. And they'll be very visible in color. So we speak that to product differentiation so that everyone will just want to get there, store number this, have the best product in the market. You are a shoulder high above the others. So, by preparing and thinking through these questions and answers, you will post a more confident entrepreneur, and trustworthy when it comes to attracting potential lenders and stakeholders. I don't want to talk about borrowing here because not everybody has a mountain of cash. You have a bright idea to do something, you sell the idea to somebody. You'll be sure that you're not selling so that they go and do it, but you're selling so that you can get funding. So a well thought out entrepreneur engagement is like to attract, potential funders and stakeholders. So we now move into having thought through all this to create a business plan. That's how it works. The moment you bring in a business plan, then you're thinking about other people that must perhaps fund. Okay, otherwise if you have the cash, but you still need this structure anyway, so that it's a document that will make you can have reference to from time to time. So the main part of a business proposal, include an executive summary. Perhaps let me not bore you too much with this. A company description, what makes your company unique. Remember, product differentiation, and not just any other company. Because in your pricing, will be so competitive in the market, you will consider your company structure, you consider this description of the services or product offerings, your supply chain, marketing and sales strategy, financial projections, plus any other additional useful information. Now, Luke 14:25, 29 and 30 speaks to the fact that which one of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the costs, whether he has enough to finish it, lest after he has laid the foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him and saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Now, I love this point. My position on this is that don't engage in something. Don't do anything unless you do it well. The half-baked measures end up in white elephants. Starting a business today, even before it takes off, it fails because you haven't properly done your market analysis. You need to do a market analysis for any business that you need to engage in. Market analysis. Because it will speak to the impact of the business that you're doing, to the supply chain, to your market. Businesses are about market. There's one mall in Livingston called the Livingston or Victoria Mall or Falls Mall. Money was spent to get this mall up. And there were 2 anchor tenants. But the 2, one of them closed, and the other one built his own shop and moved the business. What remained of this mall is that it was a white elephant. And I think along Kafio Road, there's another white elephant. Withstanding the COVID environment, a number of malls are becoming close to white elephants. Well, market analysis may have been done, perhaps not to the latter. But of course, nobody foresaw COVID would come, and maybe there could be any other pestilences or calamities that may befall us. But please do a sufficient market analysis so that your business does not end up becoming a white elephant. You'll have sunk money. And perhaps that was your lasting way. I like to talk to people that will have retired. Somebody who has not attempted any business in his working life. He's been moving from 8 to 5 in the office. He's been a school smart guy, employed, he's been working. He's come to retirement age. He's still energetic, and the little money that he gets at the end of his retirement age, he buys a bus. He doesn't have any experience in managing buses with all these bus drivers and their behavior. White elephants. Maybe he starts to build a house so he can rent out. Retirement money must never be used for such projects because that's the only means for your survival. That money must be used wisely. Avoid white elephants. So having done your business plan, you gather needed resources, launch your marketing strategy. This is perhaps at a slightly higher level than what most of us will do, but critical mass hangs on getting the finances needed, and set yourself long-term goals. But please start small. If you see any job advert, one of the most critical aspects that is asked is experience. Now, if you don't have an experience in doing something, especially business, don't start big. Because if something goes wrong, your fall will be terrible. So start small and you're learning. Now, I will give an example of myself. I think 2 years before the end of my contract, which I said not to renew, I started poultry farming. And, I didn't start small because I remember that while at Edinburgh, when I went for my graduation after an MBA program, So this lady asks me in a hotel, she says, now that you've done your master's, what do you want to do? Then my answer was very sharp. I said, I cannot continue working for somebody. I mean, you're a master in business administration. Well, you can work to try and get to a certain level in terms of experience in the corporate world. But do your own business administration. So when I stepped into thinking about pottery, well, I mean, I've tried a number of businesses, and attempting a business shows you how many other businesses you can't do. That may go wrong. But this one was a hit because I had thoroughly thought through it. I had understood the market. I had seen the supply chain. I had seen the demand. At least there's demand for everyone who attempted them, in my view at the time. So I hit 15,000 birds, and the guy that I bought the birds from asked me, have you ever done pottery farming before? Then I said, why do you ask? He says, because nobody has ever done 15,000 birds in one shot. Well, I haven't looked back since then. But my advice is that it's good to start small, just in the event that you hit a snag. So in your starting small, you can then gain experience and then begin to build up on the ladder. But again, as I've said, you will learn many ways things don't work. Please create a carrot to dangle for your financing. I would want to close by looking at the B and I triangle in your business establishment. You worry about your product. You worry about the legal framework, systems. When I talk about legal, you have out here statutory obligations. You have the likes of NAPSA. You have ZRA. You have workers' compensation. Now there's NEMA. So you worry about all these institutions. They need to do your returns to these respective institutions. It will be more reasonable engaging in entrepreneurship because you're not just adding to the government revenue and taxes, but you're adding to the GDP of the country. You're creating an environment to employ the younger ones because, capital is such a huge thing for entrepreneurship. With people, certain individuals, it's here that they may not have readily available capital, but because of this, let me give an example. There's one former vice president in this country. I will not mention the name. I would have loved to. It's an interesting one. He worked for Woodgate Holdings. And the owners of that building wanted to get back to the UK. There was a bunch of the owners who were from the UK. So he didn't have the cash readily available. So he entered a deal with the owners of the building. What was the deal? He asked if he could pay them for that building in installments. Okay, he had worked with them. He had built a relationship, and they readily accepted. So what does he do? He collects rentals from the tenants in the same building, and that made the first deposit that he made to the owners of the building. So they got that deposit, and then the period for that deposit elapsed, and so he goes back and collects more rentals. At the end of the day, he ended up owning that building without his own money. Here. You may need to worry about systems, your accounting systems, your HR systems, and the rest of it. Communication is very, very key in your business. Cash flow. is a critical mass. Your goods, your purchases, your sales, cash flow is critical in that business. At the end of the day, when you put all these things together, we need to support the gospel. We need to support the work of God. After all, it is He who gives us strength that we make wealth. In conclusion, I'll be saying that retirement, for those that are working, and death will surely come. But your going is your choice. We do not know or do not follow where the path may lead, but at least we know who leads us in the path. And heaven, dear friend, is the ultimate prize, the finishing line. Invest your retirement, invest your wealth, invest your riches in heaven. God bless you.
One day at a time, sweet Jesus. That's all I'm asking of you. Just give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday's gone,
just pushing and shoving, and it's growling my mind. Lord, for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. One day at a time, Jesus. That's all I'm asking of you. Just give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Oh, yesterday's gone with Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. Help me today, show me the way, one day at a time. Help me today, show me the way, one day at a time. Thank you.
In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus. In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all the world, but give me Jesus. Just about the break of day, just about the break of day, just about the break of day, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all the world, but give me Jesus. Oh, when I come to die, oh, when I come to die, oh, when I come to die, give me Jesus. Oh, when I come to die, oh, when I come to die, oh, when I come to die, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all the world. You can have all I've got. You can have all the
Greetings, brothers and sisters in the Lord. Our theme is Now is the Time. And we are considering Romans chapter 13, verse 1 to 13. Romans chapter 13, verse 11 to 13. The title for our message says, Let us walk earnestly. Let us walk earnestly. Let us just read Romans chapter 13, verse 11 to 13, and do this, knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now our salvation is nearer than we first believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Therefore let us cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Let us walk properly as in the day, not in revelry and drunkenness, not in lewdness and lust, not in strife and envy. One of the things that this passage brings out is that Christianity, even now, just like in the time that Paul wrote to the Romans, Christianity is a lifestyle. It's not a story. It is something that people must live with and live by. It cannot be taught. It needs to be seen. And so we find that he's suggesting a lot of activities in these verses. And it looks like there is actually an indication that Christianity would mean allegiance to God and Jesus. And then if you are not in that line, you cannot claim to be a Christian. In fact, you need to choose a master between the evil one, or between darkness and the light, between God and the devil. That's what Christianity is all about. It's actually a choice of one master over the other. So you're actually moving, in this instance that Paul is talking about, people are moving from darkness unto the marvelous light of God. They are moving from evil to righteousness, from darkness to light, and from night to the day. That means when you are a Christian, according to Paul, there is no allowance for dull moments. You need to make choices every day. And we must also agree that, therefore, Christianity must be a complete lifestyle that can be seen by everyone. They don't need to ask. They will see it. Anything short of a clear vision of Christianity cannot be said to be Christianity. It could be a story about Christ and his religion. And you actually come to believe that almost all religions demand allegiance. And so Christianity as well demands allegiance. Now he says, let us walk properly. Or in other versions, walking honestly. Obviously, the walking he's talking about is not the counting of steps. In verse 13, this walking means the way you conduct yourself as a Christian. The manner that people will describe you. That is the walking he's talking about. That means when he says walk properly or walk honestly, he's actually saying walk respectful. In other means, when your conduct, your conversation, the things that you do, the things that people describe you with, must show respect as a Christian. In other words, your mannerism must show that you are a Christian. You must also be very graceful as a Christian, and you must be becoming and also honorable. There is need, in other words, for decency. Paul is talking about in here, when he says walk properly, he says he demands decency from Christians. They must show that they are living a decent life. A decency talks about a life where people cannot tell whether you're a Christian or not. The things that you do not show respect at all. In other words, Christians need to walk as in the day. The other verses talked about that. Walking as in the day, that means walking in clear respect. Nobody needs to doubt anything about you. That's walking properly. That's walking decently. That's walking honorably. That's walking respectfully. That means your conduct, your style of life can be respected by many people, both Christians and non-Christians. Your activities must be crystal clear. That's what he's talking about. In the time that Paul lived, and in the time that he wrote the letter and received information about the city of Rome, there were several things that happened in the city that he discouraged Christians to be part of them because there was a lot of indecency in the city. And seriously, many of us live in cities now, and there's a lot of indecency as well in the city. That means all of us as Christians, probably wherever we are, since now it is called a global village, decency is demanded because there's a lot of indecency among the people that we live with, and Christians must be known that these are more respectable than others. Now let's see what happened in the city of Rome during the time of Paul. Certain activities that makes him say, therefore Christians must walk or conduct themselves decently, honorably, and respectfully. What was happening in the city of Rome during that time? Romans chapter 1 is actually a host of things that happened in the city that were not respectful for a Christian to be found in them. And we can read some of them from Romans chapter 1, from verse 24 to 31. It says, therefore God also gave them up to uncleanness in the lusts of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves, who exchanged the truth of God for the lie, and worshipped and served creatures rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. For this reason, God gave them up to vile passions. For even their women exchanged the natural use of what is against nature. Likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, bend in their lust for one another, men with men, committing what is shameful, and receiving themselves the penalty of their error, which was due. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them up over to a debased mind, to do those things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning and trustworthy, unloving and forgiving and merciful, who, knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who do them. This was the life in Rome during that time. Now, this is the life that some of the Christians came out from. And the fear was, this life may continue in the church because people may walk carelessly, unrespectful, to be among the sins that were found in Rome. There was a possibility that Christians will take it for granted that because they are in the church, these things will disappear naturally. And he says they won't unless you choose a life to be respectful, to be committed to the grace of God, to be becoming and honorable. You may slip away into the very life that you came out from. And that was the danger that Paul saw in the church at Rome. That because of the nature of the church and where it was found, most likely some of these Christians will not understand the need to live right and respectably. Because there is always a danger that Christianity can be told as a story and not part of the Christian. And that danger is that when you live there for the church building or wherever you are meeting, you can do other things that are not fitting for a Christian. And this is what he was crying about. People living a life outside the church building that is not Christian, only called Christian when they are in the church building. But they can do all the evil deeds because they have not put on Christ as yet. And so when you read verse 14, he says, in order for the Christians, that time and even now, to walk honestly and respectably, and to come out of drunkenness, to come out of lust, strife, and envy, they will need to put on Jesus Christ. That means they need to wear him all the time. And actually, when they put on Jesus, it is that they accept Jesus in a way that Jesus will live in their hearts. So verse 14 says, but put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to fulfill its lusts. So therefore, living in sin is actually putting on the devil and his activities. So there are two issues that arise from this passage. Those that do not put on Jesus are putting on the devil. And the activities in the city of Rome were clearly from the devil. So he is persuading the Christians now to change. Now that they have accepted Jesus, they must change and put on Jesus. And as we said sometime, one of the ways to know that you are putting on Jesus is to read other passages that Paul talked about on how to put on Jesus. And one of the passages that I like is obviously the passage in the book of Colossians chapter 3. The book of Colossians chapter 3 shows us how Christians can put on Jesus. How Christians can accept Jesus and Jesus becomes part of them, part of the life. In other words, the lifestyle changes from being ordinary to a life that Jesus lives in you. After all, Christianity is a nickname for people that live like Christ. That means they have a lifestyle similar to Jesus. And in the book of Colossians, Paul wrote about on putting on Jesus and making no provision for the flesh. Colossians chapter 3, verse 12, going to 17. Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies. Christians must be known for tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another, forgiving one another. If anyone has complained against another, even as Christ forgave you, so you also must do. But above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection. And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which also you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God, Father through him, the Father through him. Now this is how you will know that I have put on Jesus. You move out from the evil tendencies that are mentioned in the book of Romans chapter 1. You now dress yourself in mercy. And mercy comes from God. You dress yourself in kindness. You dress yourself in humility, in meekness, and long-suffering. Bearing one another. Forgiving one another. And if anyone has a complaint against another, the person must learn to forgive just like Jesus forgave us. That's how you put on Jesus. That's how you move away and begin to walk honestly and properly. When you become meek, when you are kind, when you are humble, when you are merciful, when you are long-suffering, then it will show that you have put on the love of Jesus, which is the perfection of Christianity. And obviously this is agape love. Love without conditions. Human beings must be loved without any condition. They don't need to reward us for anything. Because they were created in the image of God. And we must have the peace of God to rule in our heart. That's how we put on Jesus. That's how we walk respectfully. And we must be thankful that the word of God will dwell in us to give us wisdom. Now, wisdom is a choice that we make between evil and righteousness. When we begin to discern that this I cannot do because it is evil, I cannot walk in this way because it is evil, that's a wisdom that comes from God. You cannot walk miscellaneously. You cannot conduct a life miscellaneously and call yourself a Christian. We need wisdom and teaching and admonishing from God. The life of a Christian must be full of hymns and psalms, praising God. You move away from drunkenness to singing for Jesus. Because it is through him that we find this salvation. That teaches us to forsake worldliness. That's how we change to begin to walk honestly and properly. Otherwise, the worldly life that non-Christians are known by will be in the church. Maybe the only difference will be that the others are dry sinners, the others are wet sinners. They have been baptized. So what do? Make no provision for the flesh. In other words, because we changed from worldliness, which is the flesh, to the grace of God, we must no longer make provision for the flesh if we want to walk properly, as he terms it. If we want to walk honestly, as he terms. If we want to be known as people that are respectable, we need to make sure we don't make provision for the flesh. And making provision for the flesh means allowing sin to control us. Now, Galatians chapter 5 has a list of the things that belong to the flesh that we must avoid if you want to be respectable. Galatians chapter 5, verse 16 to 21 has a list of things that will show that this one has made room for the flesh to control. In other words, he has put on the devil. He hasn't put on Christ. What do we find in those that make provision for the flesh and they don't walk properly? Verse 16, I say then, walk in the Spirit. So walking properly is walking in the Spirit. Walking honestly is walking in the Spirit. And this is the Spirit of God. And you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. So when he says, walk properly, walk honestly, it actually says, we walk in the Spirit of God. For the flesh will always war against the Spirit. And the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary to one another, so that you do not do the things that you wish to do. So there's a proper contradiction between those who walk properly in the spirit and those who do not walk properly and walk in the flesh. But if you are led by the spirit, you are not under the law. Now, the works of the flesh are evident, which are adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lewdness, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, dissensions, heresies, envy, murderers, drunkenness, revelries, and the like, of which I tell you beforehand. These things found in the list that we have read is what belongs to the flesh. Now, what Paul is talking about here is that there are two categories of people in the world. Those who are not Christians walk in the flesh. Christians walk in the spirit. And walking in the spirit is walking honestly, walking properly, decently. One fitting for the kingdom. But those who have given time for the flesh are the ones that are found in the list that we read. Adultery. It means you are walking in the flesh, you are not in the spirit. Fornication. You are walking in the flesh, not in the spirit. Uncleanness. You are in the flesh, not in the spirit. Idolatry. You are in the flesh, not in the spirit. Sorcery. You are in the flesh, not in the spirit. Hatred. You are in the flesh, not in the spirit. Contentions. You are in the flesh, not in the spirit. Jealousies. You are in the flesh, not in the spirit. Bursts of wrath. You are in the flesh, not in the spirit. Selfish ambitions. You are in the flesh, not in the spirit. Dissensions. You are in the flesh. Heresies, envy, murderers, drunkenness, revelries, and the like, of which I told you before. Just as I also told you in the time past, that those which do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. So why do we need to walk properly and honestly? Because we are seeking for the kingdom of God, that which is about to come. When we say now is the time, we are actually saying the kingdom of God, and that the kingdom of glory is going to appear. And those who walk in the flesh will not inherit it. But you know, the book of Galatians tells us that you can actually choose to walk in the Spirit. And walking in the Spirit means, in the book of Romans, walking properly or honestly. And how do you do that? Colossians chapter 5, verse 22, gives us a way to walk in the Spirit or walk properly. If you want to walk properly and inherit the kingdom of God, here is the list. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such, there is no law. Against such, there is no law. And those who are in Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Those that are walking in the Spirit, those that are walking honestly and properly, have crucified the flesh and the passions of the flesh and desires. So therefore, we live in the Spirit. Let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another and envying one another. That's what it means to walk properly. It's actually being controlled by the Holy Ghost. Your life is renewed. Your life is changed. No longer enjoy sin or the fruits thereof of sin. You are now a different creature. Now, my brothers and sisters, let's say this. Paul is talking about a change of life. Life lived in Christ is a life that shows a changed character. It demands decency. It demands the fruit of the Spirit. It demands to walk in the light. It demands to show that a remarked change has happened. It's not a story, as we said in the beginning. You don't tell people about Christianity. People must see it. How then, therefore, we may ask, will this happen to you and me? There's a suggestion here that Paul makes again. To those that walk properly, that walk in the Spirit, the suggestion is simple. And it is 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away, and behold, all things have become new. I plead with you, my brothers and sisters, as I plead with myself. We need to become new creatures. The kingdom of God is at hand, and this is the kingdom of God. We will not inherit it if you only talk about Christianity. We will not inherit it if we just belong to the church because we are people that have been declared as a Christian because we are a Christian nation. Christianity shows a remarked change. So I plead with you. Will you consider this important in your life as well? That staying in the church is not the story. The real issue is how far is your heart from the kingdom of God? Will you not consider it important? Will you not consider it of a prime importance? Will you not consider it necessary to begin to evaluate your life and see a change? My prayer is, go look into the mirror, look into your eyes, and see what's wrong with you. Why are you walking in the flesh and walking indecently when the grace of God is upon us? Why not change? And why not accept Jesus completely as your personal Savior? And walk honestly, walk decently, and walk properly. And consider that the Lord has died for you. You don't need to embarrass Him that way. May the grace of God cover all of us, and may we consider changing our lives for the better and changing our lives to inherit the kingdom of God. Be blessed forever and ever. Amen.
We'd like to thank you, loving Father, that you've given us hope. And we believe that beyond doubt, that to such a one who was listening, having financial difficulties, has felt the peace of mind beyond measure. Maybe one was going through health challenges. Through the messages, we've been blessed. We thank you, Father. Now we pray that even as we go to meditate upon your word, may each mind be inclined to the things of heaven. May we make a decision in our hearts to follow you and never go backwards. Bless us abundantly. This we pray as you will. May it happen in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.